Jalen Green is blinding fast. And I think it's clear to most people that first step and burst and acceleration are some of the most important traits that a scorer can have. And many of the best scorers in NBA history, Michael Jordan, Allen Iverson, et cetera, Russell Westbrook, Prime Westbrook, all of these guys just had unbelievable burst to get to the rim whenever and to generate great shots. And Jalen Green, that is one of the first things that you will notice when you are watching him. His speed and acceleration are blinding. No matter who you are, if you are a rangy forward like Scotty Barnes or a guard or a big, staying in front of him 1v1 is a fool's errand. It is just not something that is going to happen. And with Jalen Green's handling and the ability to string together crossovers with that explosion, there are some just absolutely ridiculous space creation and explosion moments. Look how explosive. Like, if I were to do like a dictionary, this is what play I would choose to put next to explosion. Explosion off of the cross. The initial move buckles Wendell Carter. He crosses back over. Just watch the little subtle pacing here before the explosion, and then look how high he gets off of 2 feet to finish there. The explosiveness is overwhelming. And that's part of what made Jalen Green such an awesome prospect, is that explosiveness and that ability to get downhill. Even Clint Capella here can't really stay in front. But there does come a problem where oftentimes Jalen Green plays too fast. And the great scorers and the great creators, Luka Doncic, Steph Curry, Chris Paul, Trae Young, all know how to play fast and slow, Ja Morant. And this is where Jalen Green's development is taking him. And I think his development so far in year 2 is really interesting and a lot deeper than what you know by the numbers. I mean, his points are just up, but his efficiency everywhere is down except for threes, which he's taking more and shooting more, which is awesome. His general efficiency is down. His relative true shooting is way down. We'll go into more of that. But I think that doesn't tell the whole story, as Jalen Green is making real improvements. But he plays too fast a lot of the time, where Clint Capella just doesn't really have to guess here. Obviously, he's one of the best defenders in the league this year. But with Jalen Green running straight at him, and with a big man like Capella who has the capacity to move with him, there isn't really much thinking for him to do. He doesn't put pressure on the defense in any way but his speed. And when his speed is cut out, Capella is able to sniff out that layup attempt and pretty easily snag a block there, just because it's generally predictable. Green is running a lot of these type of stagnant pick and rolls, which the Rockets' offense has not done him favors, which we'll get into. But the general just one speedness is the biggest real issue, and that is the worst way ever to describe it. The lack of changing speeds, I guess. Again, he doesn't put Capella in a bind here. By picking up the ball and just blitzing to the rim, there isn't any threat of a pass to the roll. By taking a little dribble here and a little pause, there's no threat of a pass out. And because Jalen isn't the most comfortable passer yet, this is kind of a non-issue, to where Capella can just kind of focus solely on protecting the rim from Jalen Green's layup. Again, he's just kind of bottlenecking his own options when he's going too fast and when he's kind of out of control. However, there have been real developments for Jalen with his pacing and his slowing down of the game. And the game really is moving slower for him, which is a notable progression. This was kind of starting to happen towards the end of last season after the All-Star break, but especially now, where plays like this are a far cry from the Jalen Green we see at other times, and especially last year, where he's been getting really, really good at snaking and putting his defenders in jail. That's his go-to kind of pick and roll move at this point. John Conchar is a tough defender, but he's able to put him in jail to get him off of him, snake back around, take a little slow down dribble here before he explodes to the rim and gets that inside hand finish. If Jalen Green were to just explode right here and go straight to the rim, he would have run into his big man, and there wouldn't have been a window. But because Jalen Green slowed down, he slowed the pace, he was able to create an opening for himself that wouldn't have been there if he was just blazing down the court. because of how important that change of speed. It's, like a change up in baseball, getting the defenders to think you're doing one thing and then doing another. This pacing has helped him get a lot of these like mid-range pull-ups. He's taken a ton of these short pull-ups and has been awesome on them this year. I think he's shooting really, really well on these. On these like 3 to 10 foot shots, 10 to 16, like 46%, 40%, that is fantastic. And Jalen, because of his improved pacing, again, he has a runway to attack Nurkic. And last year, he probably just blast straight at him. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But because Nurkic isn't the greatest big defender, he can slow down, snake again, as we see. He's loving those little snakes and rise into a wide open pull-up that he's creating for himself by slowing down and by starting to play with more pace and starting to play just generally more deliberately. I'm really consistently impressed with his screen craft. As even if Jalen isn't, scoring here, he's pretty reliant on this like Euro step to create space inside right now, which we'll get into more. Look at how many times he uses this screen. He goes over the Fernando screen once, he rescreens with a crossover, and then crosses back over one more time, rejecting the screen. Like, he's not only able to get by guys without a screen. This is kind of like overkill. And a little unfair because Jalen can burst by guys without screens, but when they're able to manipulate screens like this as like a 21-year-old guard with his level of athletic tools, man, that's really special. And that is a development that is new this year, and that is very, very exciting and is something that I'm going to be monitoring. I'm going to be continuing to monitor. There still is some like tunnel vision. Like, he can get over-reliant on the little floater here. It seems like he kind of is very predetermined in what he picks. Again, great screen craft again, using the rescreen to get into the lane, but immediately hucks up a little floater when it might have been smarter to get a little deeper, force a rotation, make a pass. He generally just kind of predetermines those plays. But what has really tanked his efficiency this year is Jalen's finishing, which, again, he wasn't that great at last year, but he was pretty solid. It's regressed a ton. He's improved a lot in these areas. I think that's a testament to his increased pacing, his increased willingness to get these shots, but the finishing is really, really bad. To start this year, among all players who have shot 50 times at the rim, Jalen Green is dead last in field goal percentage at just over 50%, and he's not really getting to the rim as much as you'd think. He is second to last in rim frequency among these guys too. And I think a bunch of that is just like the increased 3-point volume and the increased pull-ups. But I think there are real finishing issues that I am optimistic about him resolving. A lot of Jalen Green's finishes now just kind of look like this, where he is using his wild touch and explosion and balance and body control, which are all fantastic. And the fact that he's able to make shots like this is really remarkable. Again, we have a play right here where he goes right at Brook Lopez, who is the NBA's most fearsome rim protector so far this season. And because of his flexibility and his ability to hang in the air and change his body angle, he gets around Brook Lopez midair, around those long arms, and is able to finish really easily in traffic. But these kind of general like finishing craft issues pervade a lot of his scoring game. Like a lot of young slashers, I talked about this with Ben Mathurin in my last video, Green picks up the ball way too early. And especially for someone unlike Mathurin, who has a really good handle and could get a lot out of picking up the ball too early. Obviously, he's so reliant on this burst and can get by guys. But when you're picking up the ball this early, you're limiting your options. And Wesley Matthews is right on time. This would be a quite difficult pass given the way he picks this ball up. And he's not able to do the same little floater that we saw a couple plays ago. Because he wasn't thinking about the finishing craft, because the pickup was so early and ended up not being what Jalen needed to finish there. The finishing craft is just raw at this point, which is something you see a lot in like young explosive finishers who often haven't really needed to exhibit that kind of finishing craft. As I kind of mentioned before, he's very reliant on this Euro step. Again, easily able to get past this defender 1v1, but once he challenges the monstrous Brook Lopez, he kind of Euros aimlessly. There isn't really a reason for this play, and he just kind of like flings up an inside hand layup without much thought. He could do well to decelerate here a bit, to maybe stop, jump stop, throw in a spin move. There are lots of different craft avenues that he could take in terms of his finishing development that he just hasn't yet. But again, I think given his crazy athletic tools, how awesome his touch seems to be, and how great he is at hanging in the air and finishing, I really think he's going to be a much better finisher than he has started this year. And part of that is like his usage rate is way up this year. The Rockets offense, very stagnant, not inventive. Jalen Green is a really good off-ball player that doesn't get the chance to do it enough. When he is in opportunities like this where he can blow by a guy and backdoor cut for a dunk, like there's no stopping him. He is blinding. And again, he's so good at like setting up his screens and setting up his off-ball actions. Watch him shake John Morant out of his shoes like a receiver. Like I love plays like this. And I wish Jalen got to do more of this because so much of his stuff is just like stagnant on-ball actions and flat pick and rolls. And again, I think a lot of this, a lot of the faults, and I commend him for excelling the way he has in this environment. And obviously I think important to note that the jumper keeps getting better. That was always a strength of his, or at least in the last couple of years, and the shots he's hit this year are just absurd. And when you combine that with his ability to create space off the dribble with his handle, and his ability to shoot from well beyond the NBA line, this is just a guy that is going to be unstoppable once he cleans up the pacing and once he cleans up the finishing craft, which are the two big areas, in my opinion, for Jalen Green to kind of clean up as he continues to grow as a scorer. And as he continues to grow as a scorer, he will continue to grow as a passer. Those things go hand in hand as he learns to take advantage of his gravity. Look at that incredible space creation. Like what? Oh my God. Just like the way he can use his pacing with the handle and his change of direction and change of speed with those initial bursts to get open is mesmerizing, but he's not that great at like passing off of his gravity and noticing this and kicking one pass away here. Oftentimes he'll miss like fairly easy driving kicks. You'll see Jabari Smith putting his hand up, hey, pass to me. And Jalen ends up getting stonewalled and taking a really tough fadeaway that ends up going in because Jalen is sick. Wait, no, this isn't going. Yeah, it does. Okay. I don't know why I thought it didn't go in. But even going back to like pre-college, I think Jalen made really good passing progress over his years from a junior in EYBL to high school to G League, where he was able to use his speed to get to the rim and create passing opportunities via these laydowns, where defenses again can't stay in front of him, and he was able to thread passes in front of help to finish and find defenders, or find his teammates, And I was reminded of this pass, which is like one of the wildest passes I've seen that I feel like most people haven't seen before. What? I don't know. Like that is unbelievable. But again, using his speed and his rim threat to open up laydown passes is something I expect we see more from Jalen as he progresses as a passer. We haven't seen this much, but this is a good example. Attacks Bamba on the closeout, the help collapses, and he throws a simple laydown to KJ Martin. It's nothing complicated, nothing crazy, but it's going to be important for him to capitalize on the scoring gravity and the help defense he forces. But Jalen Green is in a good place, undoubtedly, I think, regardless of his lowered efficiency, his finishing numbers, because there are concrete developments of him as an on-ball creator happening. The pace is getting better. He's slowing down, throwing in more kind of early pick and roll variation. And then I'm going to look for the finishing craft to keep improving. Maybe throw in some deceleration at the rim, a la Luka, a la Harden, a la Shea, to really finish strong and to kind of fend off these big men. Again, maybe just like an elongated step, instead of a jump, elongated steps into a slowdown to use Capella's momentum against him, for example. But Jalen's been so fun to watch this year, and the Rockets, despite their issues, they've got a good one in him, and I'm very excited to watch him develop over the years and see how he finishes, continues this year.